Every morning at exactly 7:30, the blue curtains moved. They didn't fly open or wave like flags. No, they simply shifted, just a little, as if someone behind them was watching everything. The neighborhood kids used to say the old woman behind the curtains was a witch, that she had eyes like a cat and could hear you even if you whispered from across the street. Emily didn't believe in witches, at least not really. She and her husband, Michael, had just moved into the small house across from the mysterious window. It was their first home, a little crooked, with a broken mailbox and creaky stairs, but it was theirs. And it had a view, a clear view of the house, with the blue curtains. It became part of her mornings. She'd drink her coffee by the window, look out at the trees, and glance just for a second at the house across the street. And the blue curtains always moved. "Have you ever seen her?" Emily asked Michael one night. He shook his head. "Nope, just the shadow sometimes. Kind of tall, kind of creepy." Emily laughed. "Maybe she's just old and lonely. Or maybe she eats young couples," he said, grinning. But there was something behind his joke. A tension that had been growing. They'd been married only 7 months, and yet there were already long silences at dinner. Small arguments about socks and toothpaste and laundry. Michael worked late. Emily stayed home, trying to turn their new house into a home. Some days, it felt like they were both just pretending. One chilly Thursday morning, everything changed. Emily was watering the small plants on her porch when she noticed something strange. The blue curtains were still. No movement, no shift, just silence. She felt a strange twist in her stomach. The curtains never stayed still. That evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the houses in gold, Emily saw something even stranger. A small paper, maybe a letter or a note, was on the old woman's porch, and no one came out to pick it up. The next day, the note was still there. The day after that, too. Finally, on Saturday morning, Emily stood on her porch holding a basket of laundry. She stared at the house across the street. The feeling in her chest was heavy. She walked down the steps, across the street, and up the old stone path. Her hands trembled as she reached the porch. The note was a flyer, something about roof repairs, nothing important. But now that she was there, so close to the door, she heard it, coughing, weak and scratchy. From inside, she knocked. No answer. She knocked again, louder. Still nothing. Then she turned to go, but paused. Her heart pulled her back. She called out gently, "Hello, are you okay?" For a moment, there was silence. Then, a voice, soft, tired, and older than Emily expected. "You're not selling anything, are you?" Emily let out a small laugh. "No, just checking on you." A pause. Then the sound of slow, careful steps. The door creaked open, and there she was. The woman behind the door wasn't scary at all. She was thin, with white hair pulled into a soft bun and bright eyes that studied Emily carefully. "I'm Nora," she said. "I'm Emily. New here," Nora said. Not a question, but a fact. "Yes. Just moved in across the street." Nora nodded. "I've been watching." Emily smiled nervously. "You're not very good at watering your roses," Nora added. Emily blinked. "What? You pour too much at once. Drowns the roots." "Oh, but your curtains are nice. Green suits you." Emily couldn't help but laugh. There was something about Nora's directness, sharp, but kind underneath. They spoke for 5 minutes, then 10, then almost an hour. By the end, Emily had sat on the porch step, and Nora had told her about her late husband, her garden, And the time she painted her curtains blue because white was too boring for an old lady. When Emily finally stood to leave, Nora said something quietly. You can come back. If you ever feel like talking to someone who's lived through worse. Emily looked at her. Worse. Nora's eyes were full of something Emily couldn't explain. Pain, maybe. Or wisdom. You'll understand soon, Nora said. Back at home, Michael didn't ask where she'd been, but Emily looked out the window, across the street, and smiled when the blue curtains moved. This time, they waved. Not a warning, a welcome. The next time Emily visited Nora, she brought muffins. They're from the store. She admitted, handing the small bag over. But I warmed them in the oven. That counts, right? Nora gave her a sideways glance. Only if you didn't burn them. Emily laughed, and for a moment, it didn't feel like they were strangers. It felt like something older, like they'd known each other in another life. They sat on the front porch again, the wooden floor creaking beneath them. Nora wore a gray sweater with little embroidered birds on it. Her hands trembled when she lifted her tea, but her voice was clear and strong. So, she said after a long sip, how long have you and your husband been pretending everything's fine? Emily froze. The smile faded from her lips. Nora didn't look at her. She just watched the wind play with the tree branches. I'm sorry, Emily said, quietly. That was fast. Truth usually is, Nora replied. You didn't come back for muffins. You came back because something's heavy, and you're too young to carry it alone. Emily looked down at her hands. We fight about stupid things, and when we're not fighting, we're quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet. The kind that makes you feel like you're alone in a room full of noise. Nora nodded slowly. I know that silence, she said. Emily looked up. You do. 47 years married. The last 10, we barely spoke. But not because we stopped loving each other. Because we forgot how. Emily's eyes filled with tears. No one tells you it's hard, she whispered. You think once you find love, it's easy. That everything just works. Oh, honey, Nora said softly. Love doesn't work. People do. Every day. Even when they're tired. Even when they're angry. Even when they don't understand each other. After that day, Emily started visiting Nora every week. They talked about everything. About marriage. About fears. About the future Emily wanted and the past Nora had survived. Sometimes Nora gave advice. Other times, she just listened. One afternoon, when the sky was pink and golden, Emily admitted something she hadn't told anyone. I'm scared we'll become strangers. You will, Nora said. Many times. But if you keep choosing each other, you'll also become friends again. Many times. That sentence stayed with Emily. Weeks passed. One day, Emily knocked. But Nora didn't come to the door. She waited. Knocked again. Nothing. Worried, Emily walked around the house. She peeked through the side window. And there she was. Sitting in her chair, asleep, a blanket over her knees, and the blue curtains open wide. Emily sighed in relief. But something still felt off. The next day, Nora looked paler. Her steps were slower. Her voice thinner. You okay? Emily asked. Old bones, Nora said. They creak louder when storms are near. Emily brought soup the next time. And fresh flowers. And later, a small photo of her wedding day. Nora studied the picture and said, You looked nervous. I was, Emily said. But happy. That's good, Nora said, placing the photo on her side table. Because happiness is brave. Then, one evening, something unexpected happened. Emily was walking home from Nora's when she heard voices behind her. Two teenage boys. "She's weird," one said. "Like a witch or something." "Yeah," the other laughed. "I heard she keeps dead birds in jars." Emily stopped in her tracks. She turned, walked back toward them, and said calmly, "She's not a witch. She's one of the kindest, wisest people I've ever met, and she has more heart than both of you combined." The boys looked at each other, surprised, then walked away awkwardly. That night, Emily told Michael about it. He laughed. "You cursed them, didn't you?" She smiled, a little. Then she told him about Nora. All of it. And for the first time in weeks, they talked, really talked, about their fears, their dreams, their mistakes. And he listened. Really listened. A few days later, Emily had an idea. She invited some of the neighbors, the ones who whispered and pointed to a small tea afternoon on Nora's porch. At first, no one wanted to come, but slowly, they did. Nora was surprised, but she smiled. She told stories, made people laugh, gave small advice here and there. And when one of the neighbors said, "You know, I always thought you were a bit scary," Nora replied, "Well, I am, but only when people forget to bring pastries." Everyone laughed. Eve and Emily's husband showed up with a box of muffins this time. From that day on, the blue curtains weren't just something mysterious. They became a symbol, a sign of warmth, of wisdom, of second chances. Emily still visited every week, but she wasn't the only one anymore. And as autumn leaves began to fall, and the wind grew colder, Nora sat by her window and smiled, because now, the world outside didn't look so lonely anymore. Winter came slowly. The trees turned gray. The wind whispered through the empty branches. The beach nearby became quiet, with only a few people walking in heavy coats and scarves. Nora stayed inside more often. She still sat by the window, but now with a blanket wrapped around her legs and a small heater humming at her feet. Emily visited every week, sometimes twice. She brought warm soup, new books, and stories from her life. Sometimes she just sat in silence with Nora, both women watching the world outside through the blue curtains. One afternoon, Emily brought something different, a notebook. "What's this?" Nora asked, adjusting her glasses. "I started writing down the things you say," Emily replied. "Your advice, your stories. I think other people should hear them too." Nora looked at the notebook for a long moment. "That's dangerous, you know." "Why?" "Because once something's written down, it can't be taken back." Emily smiled. "That's the point." The notebook became their new project. Emily wrote, Nora spoke. They filled the pages with little lessons. Love isn't loud. It's in the small, quiet things. You don't need everyone to like you. Just the people who matter. It's okay to feel lost. Some paths are only found by walking. Nora would sometimes laugh at herself. "I sound like a fortune cookie." But Emily would shake her head. "No, you sound like someone who lived." Then, in early January, Emily arrived and found the door already open. She walked in carefully. "Nora." No answer. She found her in the living room, asleep in her chair by the window, as always. The heater was on, a cup of cold tea on the table. The notebook was open beside her, with a pen resting on the page. Emily touched her shoulder gently. Nora's eyes opened slowly. "Ah, it's you. You left the door open. I must be getting old." She smiled weakly. "Or maybe I just knew you were coming." Emily looked closer. Nora looked smaller. Her eyes seemed tired. You okay? Emily asked, concerned. I'm peace, Nora said. And then, softly, I think I'm getting ready to go. Emily felt her chest tighten. Go where? Nora gave a gentle, knowing smile. Not far, just somewhere quiet, somewhere warm. Over the next few days, Emily came every morning and evening. Michael joined her sometimes, bringing firewood or groceries. Neighbors stopped by, one by one. Some brought food. Others just came to say hello. Everyone noticed the change. Nora was fading, slowly and peacefully, like the last snow before spring. One evening, Emily sat next to her with the notebook. Is there anything else you want me to write down? She asked. Nora looked out the window. The blue curtains swayed gently with the wind. Yes, she said, and whispered something so soft, Emily had to lean in. That night, Emily added one final line to the notebook. Don't be afraid to be kind, even when no one's looking. Nora passed away 2 nights later. In her sleep, the notebook was on her lap. The blue curtains were half open, just as she liked them. And though the house felt still, it didn't feel empty, it felt thankful. The entire neighborhood came to the small memorial service. Some people cried. Others shared memories, small ones, like the way Nora remembered everyone's names, or how she gave the best advice without ever sounding like she was giving advice. Emily stood up near the end. She held the notebook in her hands. I thought she was strange when I first saw her, she said. I was wrong. She was exactly what I needed, and maybe what we all needed. People nodded. Someone whispered, she made this street feel like home. That week, Emily hung something in her front window. A pair of soft blue curtains, just like Nora's, and every time someone passed by and saw them, they remembered. Not the mystery, not the rumors, but the woman behind the window, the kindness, the words, the quiet strength. The notebook was eventually turned into a small book. Not a bestseller, not a viral sensation, just something honest, something true. And at the beginning, on the dedication page, were 5 simple words. For the woman behind the curtains. Thanks for listening to Fluent Tales. Did this story inspire you? Subscribe to hear more English stories like this one. We learn best when we feel every word.